You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, True Weight Solutions, The 100-Year Lifestyle, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Passive Practice Profits, BrainTap Technology, Sherman College of Chiropractic, SCED, Chiro Pro Accounting, A-Line, and Midwest Brain Health Technology. Let's hustle!
Hey guys, welcome to episode 280 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host Luke Millette, and here's your host Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Steve Sanborn. And if you want to know more about the brain and body connection and how to make sense of all of this, stay tuned. All right, welcome to another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. This is episode 280, and this is Steve Sanborn, and he's coming in from, is it Kansas City?
Yes, sir.
All right, and Luke and I are Missouri. Cool. And Luke and I are coming in from beautiful Grand Junction, Colorado. And you know what? I'm really excited about this episode. It's going to be a huge eye opener for a lot of chiropractors to hear from you and some of the things that you're working on. This interview is going to be like super duper fun because you're going to tell people how to help this, idea around the brain body connection and rewiring some things. So I'm just super, super pumped for this interview at 280. And as we get into this, my favorite thing to ask people, I don't even know this. I mean, I'm sure you've shared it with me before, but what is your chiropractic story and like what really got you into this profession? And how did you become? I mean, I know you're not a doctor, but did you come in as a patient?
No, I came in as a marketer. My background is marketing.
I like that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of marketing research. So we do, in another world, I do marketing research for emotional resonance studies. And there was a time in the past when I believed that Wavi would have been a good partner for us. And then we took a closer look at what they're doing and what they've created. They actually took 10 years to develop this platform, this EEG platform. And we were so impressed with it that we created a partnership with them. And so now we work directly with them, not just on a marketing side, of course, but we work as partners in sales, distribution, and education and awareness. So no, I'm not a doctor, but I have learned a good deal about this platform and the need for brain health issues. We're talking about an EEG platform, and it's a neat cutting edge time to sort of be around this stuff. Sometimes I'll start just to give people a little sense of things by just saying, a lot of practitioners will have something like an EKG, right? We're all sort of familiar with that. If you've ever been to the doctor or you have kids or whatever, they have that EKG thing rolling around the office from time to time when it's needed, and nobody thinks anything of it. They take it for granted. And at the same time, they don't have any specialists. They don't have heart specialists on the staff. Well, this is exactly the same thing, only for the brain. So practitioners now can have an EEG platform that's simple to use and fast to use. And from there, share their data with specialists if they wish to. But more importantly, can use it for the measurement of a particular wave that each of our brains produces called a P300 wave. And that P300 wave has about 60 or so years of clinical studies and research behind it. And it is correlated directly to many different things in the brain health arena: cognitive, mental, mood, injury, and capturing just a normal baseline of people to see where their brain function and physiology is in the moment. So anyway, so that's kind of a quick nutshell of what Wavi has put together. It was originally a tool that they wanted to use in the mental health arena, but they've discovered over the years that it had utility in so many different areas of brain health, like all the ones that I just mentioned. So it's a quick way to get a snapshot of brain physiology, right? We're talking about a biomarker that people really haven't thought about in the past, but just like heart, blood pressure, all the temperature, body temperature, these are all standard biomarkers that we're used to. And the next one that's coming out across the healthcare world is this P300 biomarker, because it does correlate so closely to the state of brain health.
Well, I think it's really fascinating, some of the things you're saying here, because people might not really think about this, but the brain is the direct link to the spinal cord. And a lot of people think that the brain is just something that's housed in the skull, but the brain is like the top part of the whole spinal column, and
Yeah.
it's a big part of the transmission. Um, and I know that there's going to be some questions later on, but like how is this like integrating with understanding like recovery from injury and like head trauma? Because I
Yeah.
think that those are things that we're gonna definitely talk to you about, like concussions and things. But when it comes down to like the transition of information from injury to recovery, how is this helping with gauging that?
Well, it gauges it because this is all reproducible data. It's like the thermometer to get that body temperature. When I mentioned that, you simply put in that thermometer into the child's mouth, and if it's 104 degrees, you try it again the next few hours or the next day or whatever, and you track that progress. And Wabi pretty much does the same exact thing on that P300 level. So it'll capture that P300 and display the data in real time. And that's not something that really could be done in the past. Long ago, P300 was understood, but it took days, maybe weeks, for a group of brainiacs to really chart out what it all meant. And by that time, that's far too long past the patient's real-time needs. So now it's the software behind this platform that really has created a real-time capture. So you can use it today, you can use it 6 hours from now, you can use it tomorrow, 3 months from now, and next year. And it's looking for all the same reproducible data. And as your brain health changes for the good or for the bad, it's picking that up and it's displaying it in the form of amplitude, so electricity in the brain. That's that cortical brain response. And then physical reaction time, and then the speed of the actual wave, cortically speaking. So that wave moves, right? And it moves from deep inside. It's like a hypothalamus, deep cortical brain response to sound. So when you are having the scan done, you're listening to tones, and those tones are causing the brain to fire off that P300 wave. And the cap is capturing that and transmitting it to the laptop. And the data, or rather the software, is capturing that data and putting it together in a nice, neat report so that you can compare one session to the next session. And then you can also see visually, what is that distribution of electricity in the brain looking like? So I want to be clear, it's not an image scan, but it is a color coordinated, let us say, matched to the numbers of that report, right? So the image is displayed, and red, for instance, is the representation of voltage all the way through this color spectrum down to blue, where that would indicate an absence of normal electricity or amplitude. So the power of that electrical wave, how fast that wave is moving from that cortical all the way to the scalp, and then how quickly the patient is responding physically. In other words, they're clicking a mouse when they hear that tone, right? So if you can imagine, and I'll just show you, this is the cap, okay? So this is a flexible, almost rubbery type of EEG cap, and you slide this onto the patient's head. It's a 1020 lead cap, and it's capturing all that data and transmitting it over to the Wabi software platform. And then it's generating an instant report. So any practitioner can look at that report within about 4 or 5 minutes of having run the scan, because that's about how long it takes to capture all the basic data. Now, there are certainly reasons why you might want to scan longer than that, but Wabi's created a scenario where about 4 minutes is all you need to capture this data. So if you have patients who are coming in with any number of different ailments or issues, you can then correlate how their brain health physiology is correlated to that particular health state that they're in. So hopefully that helped to answer your question a little bit. If not, just keep asking me and eventually I'll get it, I'm sure,
No,
Jim.
it's absolutely fascinating. And I know this is a lot of information that most people don't know how to really like assimilate. So I'm
Yeah.
really thankful that you're able to come on and start to break some of this down for people to understand like what Wavi is doing and how
Yeah.
Midwest Brain Health Technology is integrating into the chiropractic space. I'm just really like blown away with some of the stuff you're sharing with us.
Oh yeah, happy to do it. And above and beyond just hardware and software, one thing that we are really after is building a network of users. We want to help practitioners to collaborate with each other because some have different disciplines and different specialties, but they can all equally use this platform to capture data. We work with pharmacologists, we work with MDs, we work with chiropractors, we work with a lot of different types of specialists who can say to each other, hey, I've got a patient and here's what I captured. I understand what the report is telling me because it's pretty easy to understand, but I would love to have your input as a specialist to tell me what you think is going on. And then those reports are easily shared to the cloud. So you're really creating a preventative network, if you will, in that brain-body health connection. And you're incorporating a lot of different groups of people, a lot of professionals who understand a specific thing about brain health. It could be a neurologist. It doesn't have to be, because you don't have to be a neurologist to use this tool any more than you do have to be a specialist to run an EKG, right? It's the same basic principle. So you can have a staff member do a quick 4, 10, 12-minute scan, whatever you need, and then you pull that data in and you say, well, all right, your amplitude is looking low, or perhaps it's looking great. Your cortical speeds, that reaction time should sit around that 300 millisecond marker. And I should probably explain that P300 stands for a positive wave that should move at around 300 milliseconds. Now, some people custom are built differently. They might be 310, somebody might be 250 or 260. They might have a pretty fast wave, which would indicate a pretty healthy brain. But on average, roughly 85% of the population in a healthy brain state will come in right around 300 milliseconds. So that's where that standard threshold comes in and enables a practitioner to use that standard in the same way that they would use other biomarker standards, like that body temperature or heart rate or blood pressure. So if somebody's coming in at 500 and they tell the doc or the practitioner they hit their head 2 weeks ago and they think they're okay, but they're not sure, they might be having some issues or dizziness, that doc is going to be able to say, you got a 500 millisecond P300. That's not normal. So we need to figure out how to repair what's going on. And again, as I say, we work with a network of specialists. So, in the nutraceutical world, we have some fantastic MDs across the country who've developed products specifically to enhance brain health, particularly after injury. And they are amazing, right? Now, so I'm not necessarily running commercials for them, but we know them because they use Wavi and they use it in their research and their clinical studies. They do a lot of before and after, where somebody might take a product such as Nupinex, which I may have mentioned to you in the past. They might get a baseline at, say 65 years of age and show signs of cognitive decline or maybe some memory care issues, or perhaps an injury. And what Nupinex is doing is it's regenerating brain cells and it's enabling that P300 to normalize and to bring amplitudes back to normal, speeds back to normal. And that's just a mere sign that other things are improving and getting better. So to be clear, Wavi is not a diagnosis, right? It's an assessment. It's a measurement tool. Just like that thermometer, a doctor doesn't rely on the thermometer to tell him what's actually going on with the patient. He uses a measurement guide to say, well, if you've got a fever, you might have an infection somewhere. Let's figure out what's going on, right? So the doc then knows to look deeper. So we've actually got a study, which just to mention, Life College West, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers will recognize that name out in San Francisco. We're in the midst right now of a study they're doing at the collegiate football level, and they're focused on head injury. And then we work with other chiropractors in different parts of the country who are using this on a day-to-day basis to bring their patients back into a much better balance. And they have this objective tool And that's the big difference, especially something like concussion, right? Look at the old days of concussion where it was like, well, you look okay, you seem okay. I guess it's all right for you to go back out and play, right? That's not a criticism of anyone in healthcare. It's just the way that they used to do it. Now they can say, well, especially if you can get a baseline preseason and you know what that athlete looks like in a normal state, and then they, crack their noggin 3 months later, now you're looking at a very specific drop in voltage or amplitude. So that red color that I mentioned earlier will not be there. And doc, practitioner, chiropractors, patients, they can all see it for themselves. There's no question. You have an issue with your brain health right now because you have a concussion. And so we want to do the following things over the next 2, 4, 6 weeks to get your brain back to normal and to run this again, because we don't want you to go back out onto the field or onto the ice or out onto the court where you're still not ready. And you see those outward manifestations of concussion will go away more quickly than that internal P300 response. That P300 response in a concussed state will last longer. It's a more sensitive measurement, let us say, for a doc to look at. So you get a young guy who's come in and, as we did last year here in Kansas City, 16, 17-year-old hockey player, and I think he was on 4th or 5th concussion, which is a lot. But the doc here that we've worked with knew Wabi pretty well and sent him out for a screening. He's like, you seem okay. Everything else on the outside is looking good, but I just want to be careful because of the number of concussions. Apparently this kid's quite a talented hockey player. Anyway, he gets to the screening, and his brain voltage or amplitude, which really should have been closer to at least 18 microvolts, was at 3.5. All right, that guy was not ready to go back out on the ice and take hits and potentially, put another injury on top of the one that he was still nursing. They just didn't know it. Well, there was no way in the past to know that. But with this EEG tool, you're watching a bunch of waves go by, right? And you think, oh, I got to be a neurologist. No, the software is doing the work. So it's running a typical EEG, but it's yanking out specific little epochs of time across that EEG reading. And it's then pulling all that together algorithmically. And that is what is enabling the software to say, this P300 wave is not normal, or conversely is doing just fine, no worry. Anyway, in the case of the hockey player, the doc was able to say, all right, you're not ready to go back out. And man, am I glad we did this. That's the message we got from him. So of course that made us feel pretty good. But in any case, this is a tool where baselines are possible so that I can tell you what you look like in a normal state. And then if something happens a year or even longer down the road, we can come back and measure up against that baseline. I think it's probably fair to say that a baseline should be done at least every couple, 3 years, because things change, especially young athletes as they're continuing to grow and get older. But that baseline is what eventually will protect them should they get that concussion scenario. And it's not to say that the other methods like impact aren't worth using. We would love to see Wabi complement that because of the objective nature of the report. So this really gives the doc a total window into that physiological aspect of the brain, which they didn't have before. And again, like I say, I've been at this long enough to know that oftentimes, because it's new, people look at it and think, gosh, I don't know. I mean, am I going to require like 6 weeks of training on this? Is there something it can be a little intimidating, but once they realize it's as simple as placing the cap on the head, running the software, a 4-minute scan, these things are not hard to do. And then there's continuing training on the reports. And the Wabi guys are fantastic about communicating directly with the practitioners when they have questions. And, from our perspective, as you guys, I'm sure agree, any business this day is really as good as its customer service. And that's what we have generated as a partner with Wabi, is a way to make sure that every client gets what they need as quickly as humanly possible. So it's no secret that software sometimes can just misbehave. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong, but it may need to be rebooted, right? Or something may need to be clicked here or there. So our clients can literally text us if they have a problem with a patient right there on the spot. They can send a text, we get that, and we reply and fix the situation right away. And I've had clients in the past, I think, who didn't take that to heart, so to speak. They'll be like, hey, listen, we have an issue. I said, first question I have is, how long has your patient been sitting there waiting for you to solve this? Well, we've been here about a half hour. I'm like, you guys should have called me in the first 30 seconds, not the first 30 minutes. Just call us or text us immediately. We'll get things back up and running within about 2 minutes. You guys will get that thing finished. So it's great to have the hardware and the software, but you also need that network of support from people who know what they're doing. And that's what we're creating. And in addition to that network of users who can collaborate, they can rely on our ability to provide the customer and technical support that they may occasionally need.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, True Weight Solutions, The 100-Year Lifestyle, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Passive Practice Profits, BrainTap Technology, Sherman College of Chiropractic, SCED, Chiro Pro Accounting, A-Line, and Midwest Brain Health Technology. Let's hustle.
Well, something I've been curious about is what are some things that people can do to improve the health of their brain? Like, what are some steps they can take at home to make sure that their brain is operating healthily?
Yeah, some of those answers, quite frankly, Luke, are pretty simple. And some of them are things that we all know and maybe sometimes just have difficulty getting to. But certainly diet and exercise are things that a lot of practitioners will ask a patient to change. They may add things like breath work, where they're doing deep breathing, certainly in conjunction with exercise. Nutraceuticals like the ones that I mentioned, a couple that we work with are Nupinex and another called Bipri, B-I-P-R-I. Nupinex and Bipri are loaded with nutrients that will restore the brain's ability to produce that normal P300. So, we have learned to kind of think in terms of deficiencies oftentimes with brain health. A lot of times I use a simple historical example of the British Navy hundreds of years ago, when they would be out to sea for weeks or months, and they started noticing the men on the ships would have bleeding gums, or they would become pale, their hair would fall out, their skin would become rashy, well, obviously they had scurvy, and that was a new thing, right? So they're looking at this, and first they're wondering, is this a communicable disease? I mean, what do we do to solve this problem? Why is it happening just to these guys in these ships? Well, they realized, obviously, that there was an ascorbic acid deficiency. Maybe they didn't describe it that way back in those days, but they realized that citrus fruits like limes, lemons, and oranges was healing that, or making the problem go away and preventing it from happening. So the body was suffering a clear deficiency, and there was a quick and easy way over time to fill in that gap or that pothole, right? So the brain has plenty of its own deficiencies. Nupinex and Bipri were created, and I mean long time invested into the creation of these products, with 25, 28, 30 different ingredients in them that are restoring those deficiencies, that are filling in those gaps and potholes and creating a whole new life for people. And I will just say, I have a good friend in New York who has been using Nupinex for the last, probably 100, 120 days. And this is a person who suffered for a long time with epilepsy. He doesn't have that anymore because he had a surgical procedure, but years, probably 2 or 3 decades. He also had a benign tumor removed, and then he had a history of a few concussions when he was a teenager. So his brain has taken a beating, right? And I could see when I visited him that there was a quality of life that was missing for him. He's still able to work. He lives his life. But I could see that things could have been much better, and I suggested Nupinex. The stupid thing that I did is I didn't get it before. I didn't get a baseline on him beforehand. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the time where I could do it. But nevertheless, he took Nupinex and still takes it each day. And by day 3 or 4, he's calling me, and he's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm thinking so much more clearly. I'm sleeping. I'm waking up at the same time. I'm more organized. I don't even need to take notes at work anymore. I just remember things. And I'm like, well, you are the prime candidate for something like Nupinex. And in an ideal world, I would have had some kind of a baseline, which I know would have shown, a P300 that was compromised. And as he continues to supplement, that P300 is coming into alignment, which is a clear indicator that his brain health is improving. So that would be a good example. But oftentimes docs are going to say, especially in the chiropractic world, that the visits they make are really delivering results. Now they can do a measurement to say, we're opening up blood flow in the cervical spine and the base of the brain, et cetera, or whatever it is that they're working on for a given patient. They can make those direct correlations with that P300 threshold or biomarker. And so there's less mystery, right? A patient knows when they feel better, and a practitioner knows that the patient is saying it. But you have to have, especially in this world today, you have to have that objective data. And that's what Wabi has so marvelously produced. Again, taking them a full decade to develop the platform. It's been on the market now 4.5 years, maybe 5. Thousands and thousands of scans later, they are also anonymizing the data from a lot of these scans and making them available to the Wabi clients who want to run research and clinical studies, so that a doc might say, I've got a 55-year-old man with a kind of a strange issue. I wonder how many other guys in his situation have had a scan. And you can go out to the cloud and discover that 20 others or 50 others, whatever, it might be 500 for all we know, depending on what the issue is. And they can start to build some trended studies across that type of categorical, research.
Well, a lot of this stuff is fascinating, and I kind of want to go in a speed round for you because we're coming up on the edge of our interview, but I know there's a lot of stuff I want to touch on. So if we can just go through the rest of the sequencing kind of in fast order. I just want to let people know that it's not about winning the game. It's about keeping people healthy in the game. So when you're talking about that like star athlete, sometimes it's not about like getting them out on the ice immediately. We want to see people recover. So that's really cool. And I'm really excited that you shared some things about how this helps in chiropractic because chiropractically speaking, a body that is in a state of adaptation, which is restoring its function, is what a lot of people go to see the chiropractor for, is that maintenance style care and to see if that we're actually getting people better. But, as we go through this, like one of the things I'm really curious about is if somebody's like saying, hey, I don't want to go do a scan. And I know that's not promoting your brand or product right now, but if somebody doesn't want to go do the scan and they're just like, hey, I want to try that like brain health, like supplement, does somebody have to have a problem for them to like start working on like better brain health?
No, I would say that's not necessarily the case, but I've seen everyone from a healthy 20-year-old use it for a month or two up to, much older with injury history, et cetera. And I'm clearly seeing a difference in those who have a more compromised situation.
Gotcha.
So a young, healthy brain may not notice the same types of reactions as quickly. It certainly can't hurt anybody to take these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I also want to just say, too, that we've done a lot of studies with a doc in Denver, Dr. Jeffrey Boone, who's a cardiologist, and he's been using it for probably the last 7 years before it was even on the market. And he's correlating heart health improvement, circulation improvement, vascular improvement directly to brain health improvement now. And he's got hundreds of patient studies that he's done with Wabi over a course of a year-long study. So a patient will go through a preventative process for 12 months and get several scans over that period of time. And he has developed this concept of brain age in correlation to the heart. Now, it's not a hard and fast medical term, but the brain age is a correlate to the heart health situation. So you might have like a 35-year-old man, but his brain is functioning at the rate of a 70-year-old man. We've seen that. And then within a year, he comes back and he's down to 40. For whatever reason, I've lucked out, at least up until now. At the age of 50, my brain age is 20. I can't tell you why that is. I don't know that I'm doing anything particularly special, But I love to share that little piece of info. So, I mean, exercise on a regular basis, nothing huge, nothing crazy. But it's a great, it's such a good feeling to be able to see the state of that health visually and with those numbers from one period to the next where you're improving.
Well, we're coming to a time where spinal health matters, organ health matters, and people don't think of these things as like, how do we like improve that? But yeah, you said it right earlier. Sometimes it's just behavior change with what you're eating and how you're physically staying active. So I think that that's a lot of clarity for people. Is your solution that Luke asked the question for is number one, get your brain scanned. Number two, before you start like changing all these things, get the brain scanned. But as you get the brain scanned, start improving these simple things you can do at home. And I wouldn't tell people to not start doing simple things like eating better and exercising before they get their brain scanned. But if they can, not like the story you shared with your friend in New York, it would make sense for people to start getting some baselines on themselves so they can say, wow, I got my brain scanned. I started going to see a chiropractor. I started getting adjusted. I started eating better and I started exercising. And wow, my brain age is showing better. And that means in correlation, as you said, my heart age will show better. And by the way, my organ age will show better. And my immune system age will show better. And my ability to adapt will be better. And I think that what we're talking to here is the brain health, and scanning it is one little, like you said, biomarker, but that could be the biggest breakthrough biomarker when we're talking about full spinal health, full brain healing, and the way that the organ system has the ability to adapt and to regenerate and reorganize. And I think it's just fascinating, some of these things you shared with us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And, honestly, this is real stuff, guys. I'm not kidding. These platforms, the Wabi platform is showing some incredible progress with injuries that I've seen people I know in my own life. Major head trauma, where a contra coup injury had very little blood flow or electricity in one area of the brain. And then after 45 days of Bipre or Nupanex, the physiological markers have returned to that area of the brain. We're watching with our own eyes.
Amazing. Like, this is maybe one of the most important like share interviews that we've ever done, because we always talk about like the x-ray, the snapshot, which is important. And we talk about like the activities of daily living, which is a snapshot of like I guess an assessment through orthopedic testing, and it's an assessment through subjective questioning. So I think that what we're doing now is we're doing a bit more clinical deep dive for people, saying, hey, this is not only as essential as having an x-ray or having an assessment through orthopedic testing and subjective conversation, but also this is something to show like, look, we now know the biomarker of your brain health. And after so many protocols of my adjustments, wow, we've changed your life. And how do you feel?
Yes. Well, and just to drop back to that concussion subject for a quick sec, Jim, Wabi has 5, 6, 7 year long-standing studies across football, soccer, and they're looking at some stats now that are pretty compelling, namely that up to 40% of concussed athletes are going back to play too soon because of the methodologies that have been used. And you cannot see that sensitivity marker without the cap. But I'm telling you, when you compile injury on top of injury, now you're getting into CTE, you're getting into depression that has no explanation. Why does a 26-year-old suddenly become clinically depressed 5 years after they're finished with their athletic career? Because their brain is injured and nobody can see it.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
It's like taking a snapshot of people's adaptation, which I think is fascinating. And like I said earlier, it's not about winning the game. It's about keeping people healthy and doing that long term. So the athletic performance end of this could be a huge shift for being an advocate for the athlete and not for the victory, which the long-term victory is better health long-term, but the short-term is we have to be better at managing people's performance.
Yep. Very much agreed, and this is what makes it so interesting for us to be involved. And just being a networker by nature, I'm be able to do a show like this or to connect with practitioners in all parts of the country now. We're pulling people together in a way that gives this thing even more meaning. Again, I come back to that collaborative approach That's what this is. This is preventative in many ways, but it's also obviously able to capture the state of an injury and allow that practitioner to say, all right, we're going to try the following 3, methodologies, or we're going to treat you in this way, and I want you back in 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it may be, and I want to see if it's working. And sometimes it will be working, right? But maybe not always. And so then now they have to go back and rethink their overall diagnosis and how they want to treat it. But at least they have the tool, like they have instruments on a dashboard to say, hey, you're going too fast or too slow. It's that easy. And we're happy to explain these things in greater detail anytime, to anybody who wants to learn a little bit more one-on-one. Always happy to do that and take you through. We've got some great videos. We've got amazing research studies, clinical studies. EEG has been around for a century. People don't think about that. It's been around for a century. P300 has been studied since the early 1960s. This is not new stuff. It's new design. It's new algorithmic software that's taken these proven methods and made them real time. Now, I don't know how it gets any better than that.
Well, Steve, this has been a very valuable episode, and I want to thank you for being our guest today. But before we all jump off, where can people find out more about this technology? How can they get scanned if they're interested?
Yeah. The best thing would be you can visit our website, which is brainhealthscan.com, brainhealthscan.com. People can reach out direct, and on that website, there's a sort of toll-free number, if you will, right there at the top, so they can call directly in, or they can email me directly, Steve. I just go steve@brainhealthscan.com. And then, we have other opportunities too for practitioners that may want to use this platform. We don't just train and then walk away. We stay right on top of that with them as a partner. And whether I mentioned it to you guys in the past, my business partner, Kerry Hall, he has a national radio show too, which we're going to be having you guys on, that at some point here in the near future. We're going to be doing that national show. We're on about 285 stations across the country. And we love using that platform to talk about WAVI or the other things that you guys are involved in. So, remember that we'll be doing that show together soon.
So do you have like a map of clinics that have this technology already if people wanted to just look up
it's a great question.
That have this?
So WAVI is out of Boulder, Colorado, just FYI. They do have a working map because they work with others too. We're not the only ones out there. But they have a working map of locations. So if somebody wants to get a scan as a patient, they can go to that map. It's just, WAVI Med, MED, wavimed.com, or they can just reach out to me and we'll get them connected wherever they are. We'll do our best. We still find a lot of times that somebody will be calling because they heard a radio show or something, and they're distant. They're too far from one. But we tell them, well, look, if you're going to travel, look for an opportunity and let us know where you're going to be, and we'll get you an appointment. I had a guy come in from, I think he was out west somewhere. He was driving through Topeka. He had heard a radio show, and I said, well, we don't have one in Topeka yet, but we have a few clients in Kansas City who offer the scan. So he drove from Topeka out to Kansas City, which isn't far, it's an hour, but he came out and got a full scan done with one of our clients who offer the platform. So that's the way this can work in difficult areas or distant areas. We'll work with you to figure out how to get that done. And just as a quick FYI, if people are wondering, what's cost like? These are not expensive. I had a guy here in Kansas City call me a few months ago with a history of epilepsy. And he said he just wasn't feeling right. He hadn't had a seizure in many years, but he wasn't feeling normal. And he said, well, how much do you think I could get an EEG scan? Not even wondering about the P300, can I just get a raw wave EEG capture? I said, yeah, we could do that in about 4 to 8 minutes. If you're going to be in that insurance reimbursement route, you have to go a little longer because that's just a policy. But within 20 minutes, you've got everything you need. I said, I think our client is charging somewhere between $250 and $400 for that. He almost died. He couldn't believe that. He's like, I was expecting thousands of dollars. And I'm like, oh no, those days are over. With our EEG platform, you have to be able to sit up. It's not a lie down and sleep mode type EEG. It's sitting upright or standing, which I've done a few of. But you're going to get a gold standard 1020 lead cap EEG report. and you can send that to any neurologist, or we can do it for you. So we've got a network of neurologists. If somebody just wants that raw wave capture, they're not going to spend much doing it.
Well, thank you for so much free information for our audience today. And
Sure.
you're a wealth of knowledge and super conversational. And I think there's a lot of takeaways from today's episode. And yeah, I'm just really excited to have you partnered with Chiro Hustle and supporting our movement of keeping free speech alive and well in this beautiful profession of chiropractic, and being able to share your truth and what you're working on. And like I said early on, it's fascinating the things that you've gone on and started to develop for the chiropractic space, showing adaptability through the brain. And there's so many people that are going to be curious about this. So thank you for being our episode 280. It was a fun share session, and I look forward to doing the next one with you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure, and I really appreciate the invitation.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.